How's it going, guys? Welcome to Audio Addiction. You win again, Gravity. I don't know how many times I've messed this up since I've had their band on, but I've been practicing. So the guys can say their names
Nailed it.
and what they do in the band.
I'm Jack Jennings. I'm the singer of You Win Again, Gravity, but also play guitar occasionally as well.
I'm Andy, one of the Andys, occasionally referred to as Mandy to differentiate, and I play bass and do backing vocals live.
I'm Johnny. I do guitar. That's pretty much it, but I'm okay at it, I would say. Two people are with us. We've also got other Andy and James, the drummer, who is they can't be with us right now, but you've got us.
That's no good. No, I'm kidding.
You got the best three. You got the best.
I did.
Three.
That's true. You're right. No, I love all of the guys collectively. So I feel like that's an umbrella, Now if, one moves up higher in the tier list than others, I mean, that's something else. But no, I've been very excited to have you guys on. I know this has been a little bit of time in the making here, but I had you guys on like during the pandemic, which was I'm sure we were all pretty unsure of whether or not music was going to be a thing after that. So, fingers crossed we're still in that it's gonna happen thing, but yeah. I would say it's getting a lot better, so arguably, but yeah, you guys have been quietly working in the background with new material. You have 3 new songs out now as of recording this. How has that process been? I know Andy was telling us about how it took an excruciating amount of time to get all this stuff out. So, how does it feel as a band now to be releasing all of this music and finally getting it out to the masses? Because I feel like a lot of bands, again, were patiently waiting until the next thing. So, how has the reception been for you guys in terms of the new songs that you've released?
I think it's been pretty good overall so far. We sit on these songs for quite a long time, so to finally be able to share them with everyone is really good, and it's really fulfilling. I think one of the best parts of this for all of us is just seeing what people think and what people say. So yeah, we've been getting a lot of positive comments so far, which is encouraging. Yeah,
it's good to see that pay off, because I think we were probably writing Curious Fake at the time of that last interview. That's probably one of the first songs, if not the first song, that we finished for the album. Well, actually, that's not true. The previous 2 singles, Recursive and Lights, are on there as well. But when we started, we sat down and said we're going to do an album. This was the first song that was done. So yeah, that was 3 years ago at this point. So we've been sitting on them for a long time. So it just feels good just to get them out there for people to hear.
Jack, what about you?
Yeah, same. Lockdown was quite useful for us because it gave us some time to write some music. That if anything, it helped for a while, because not all of us were working for the entire time as well. So that definitely speeds up productivity as well. But yeah, equally, it also makes recording really, really difficult, because legally you couldn't do it for quite a long time. So yeah, they've been kind of created and recorded in little batches, 2s, 3s, kind of thing like that. So yeah, all of our stuff always takes so long. We've always said that, and we could realistically work on songs forever if we allowed ourselves to. So you've just got to kind of draw a line under it at some point and just try and walk away. And we're not that great at doing that, so we end up tweaking for way too long. But it does mean that we're really, really proud of the end result, and I think that shows on this next album.
Deadline.
Having that deadline helps. Yeah. We tried during lockdown as well. Normally when we write, we all try and get as many of us together in a room as possible. And then during lockdown, we tried to do kind of a few sessions like this where we're all kind of remote, which was a little bit weird. I think it was kind of 50-50. We got some stuff out of it. Some stuff, I think, from the sessions made it onto the album. But yeah, in general, I think we work best when the 5 of us ideally are in a room together.
Sure.
Which obviously we're able to do a lot more kind of post 2020. I think I forget which year it was now, but yeah,
I don't either. So
it's best to forget about it. Yeah, just block it out.
It's like PTSD, you're it exists in your head, but you don't want to remember it. I don't want to remember it, but I also think that conversely, I think it also allowed bands to really kind of explore their sounds a little bit more as well. And I think with what you guys have released thus far, you know, not to toot your own horn, but I do feel like there is this level of like detail that I don't think in terms of bands that I've had on like that are more like unsigned or unknown have that level of detail in terms of their writing. Like every song that I've listened to thus far, which has been all three, so by the time this comes out or even before this, Suppression will be out as well in terms of video, so go check that out. But I think what you guys do is just like I feel like you're very surgical about how you guys write and how everything kind of is layered out in that way. And I think that a lot of bands tend to be like, oh, okay, like, you know, especially given the type of genre that you guys do. Like, I don't even feel like I could necessarily put you in a specific genre category because I think there's a whole smattering of different genres that you guys hit. But I think the thing is that it all feels like you and again Gravity in terms of that vibe. Like I don't think there's any other band that I can recall that has that sort of like, okay, I instinctually know who this band is even if I'm like not looking at my computer or not looking at my phone or whatever. It just has that sort of like staying power to it, and I think that's to me one of the biggest qualities that I think any band can bring is that if you can like instinctually know this is who it is. Like, you know, you think of any sort of like classic rock band or something like that where you don't even have to know it. You can't even see the name, but you know exactly what the lyrics are or how the music sounds. That's kind of how I feel with you and again Gravity. Also, again, you guys are like amongst the first bands that I have ever like interviewed, so I feel like I have a special place in my heart for you guys.
Oh,
but yeah, I
thanks.
think I think what you guys do is truly unique, and I think it just makes me more excited to just get into the Dancing Blue, you know, in August because I all the songs, even Suppression, I just listened to Suppression before we hopped on, and oh man, I can't. My brain is like trying to put words together in a sentence, you know.
Yeah, I think we relate to what you said about how kind of it's all quite surgical sometimes. Sometimes we'll write a riff and it will be part of a song that we've demoed, and that song will never become anything, and it sits there for years, and then we'll start writing something else and we'll be like, actually this 20-second part of that old song would work really well in here. So like nothing is ever like force fit onto the album. Like everything kind of like earns its place,
Sure.
and you know, if it's not right, then it will just kind of sit there. We've got just so many songs on Jack's laptop that are just kind of like half-baked ideas that we were like, you know, we'll get around to finish it later, or we'll figure this out later, and it will kind of like earn its place. But yeah, it's definitely kind of part of the process.
It's like an assembly line in a way, because we've just got all these various mechanical song parts lying around, and we just try things out, see what fits, and then we remember something we wrote 3 years ago that we'd all forgotten about, and then we all fall in love with it again, and maybe that fits really well. Yeah, it's an interesting process.
I think, yeah, part of that is having done this for quite a long time. And it also makes me a little bit worried about, like, if things did change, like right now we've got the luxury of time, right? That's why things take so long, is because they can take time, because we can be like, this isn't good enough, we're just going to leave that and go try something else, kind of thing. Whereas I think if we're in a situation where we were time pressured and there had to be dates behind all this stuff, like I think you'd see the quality of stuff sharply drop off, as we were like, well, we've got to do this, we've got to get this done. It's the same as anything, right? If you rush it, it's not going to be as good half the time. And I think that kind of creative process, we just have to kind of let it run its course every time. And it might, sometimes they come out really, like Curious Fake, I will say, is probably one of the quickest songs we've ever put together. It was just like, it kind of came out of nowhere. It wrote itself as a way, and we were just passengers. And then other, you know, some of the other songs take forever, and they never quite sound exactly like we want them to. And we're just like, okay, well, this is, you know, and you just keep kind of chipping away at that sculpture.
Yeah, I think the song that we recorded at the same time as Curious Fake, so we went to the studio and did two. It's a song on the album called Shadowboxing. And I think until like the week before recording, we were changing the structure, changing the order of parts and stuff. That was one where it was like, it's like 90% there, but it's not quite good enough yet. And we were just messing around with it, like right down to the wire. But yeah, it came out good in the end. So, you know, it's all worth it.
Yeah, I feel like there's a double-edged sword when you are that meticulous about your writing, where you're just.
Yeah.
I feel like you might always instinctually be like, oh, I don't know, that there's something else here that's like missing, and if I had like X amount of time to really delve into it a little bit more, I'm gonna do it. But I also think that, you know, I do think in some cases like bands release stuff too soon, and it's just like, okay, like, I appreciate the attention to detail that you guys bring to your music, but I also feel like in my head, like as listening to it, I'm like, I wonder how long it took them to write this. Like this must have taken them an excruciating amount of time because it's so succinct in like the way that maybe like some parts are like really syncopated or like really like in depth in that way that I'm like they must have spent a grueling amount of time trying to figure out, okay, well, what are we gonna do here? Like, oh man, like there was this thing on Jack's laptop that we did like 6 years ago that we were gonna throw into this song, and like how we're gonna work it in, and like, as Johnny was saying, like an assembly line of things where you have to think like, okay, like, is this best for our band or is this best for the song? And then you got to like swap
Yeah.
things out and like try to see what works. And
Yeah,
it's
sometimes
crazy.
you just get too close to the song as well. Sometimes you just get blind because you're just sat there for like a day working on a song and you're like, I don't know what sounds good anymore. And sometimes just taking that step away from it and being like, all right, let's look at it with fresh eyes in like a month or whatever, it can really help as well.
Yeah,
I mean, it just extends that time as well.
That's why it's good to write in with kind of 5 people where possible. We haven't been able to do that much recently, but like when you can actually all get in a room and some people can kind of leave and work on some section, or even you can split 2 different songs between different groups of you kind of thing, and that really helps because, yeah, as Andy says, you need someone else to walk into the room and be like, whoa, why have we gone down this rabbit hole? Like, we don't need to do this bit. Like, let's stop this bit here. Like, we've only got one chorus in an 8-minute song. Like, what's going on, guys? Like, we need to like. So you need people to come in and out and kind of just like check you at the door when you're kind of starting to go too far down these things.
We did a writing thing, I can't remember how long ago, I think it was just us 3 actually, and we were going on one of those tangents where we came up with a really stupid riff. One of us was like, oh, we should have that Slipknot kind of sound effect of someone banging a steel drum. And then we spent like 45 minutes looking for a specific steel drum sound effect to put in. And then we listened to it at the end and we just all knew this is shit. We should move on.
Yeah. Like, I don't think that's ever going to see the light of day.
Like, come on, guys, move it on. This is rubbish.
To be fair, that was we'd had like a productive day. And it got to about 8-9 o'clock, and we'd started having a few beers, and we were like, let's just get silly with it.
I mean, I should point out we were all pretty happy until the next morning when we listened to it. And we're like, yeah, no, not the one.
We went in there with the intention of just making a stupidly heavy song, like just like way heavy than anything we'd ever done. And I think we just got a bit carried away with it. Yeah, I don't think anyone other than the 5 of us will hear that.
Yeah, but that's the fun.
Maybe
part,
one day,
like,
who knows?
That's why it's good to do. You get a lot of enjoyment out of that.
It's the drunk goggles, you're like, oh yeah, this is great.
Yeah, this is our
best work. When you go play it, it's a bunch of like kids' toys and like banging sounds, and you're like, no, this is not our best
sound.
This needs to
sound.
You're like, this needs to go in the trash. It's gone. Like, we can't. This is unusable. I'm surprised we even put a song together. That was.
There you go.
Yeah, but sometimes that just messing around and experimenting, I think, sometimes great things come out of it. Like on this album, we're kind of, it's gonna sound really cliche, but really pushing ourselves in new directions, man. Like, we got new things going on. So like, there's like Jack's using some vocoder effects in a few songs, and we're using like baritone extended range guitars and stuff to try and like push the sound and develop it in new directions. So just things like that as well. Just experimenting with new things does pay off sometimes.
Yeah, I think thus far, like, again, there was just, I think there's really no way to kind of encapsulate it, and I really hope that everybody goes and checks out all of the songs. I'll leave links in the description, go show it some love. But I think that there is so much variety in what you guys bring. Like, there were some parts where I was like, oh, this feels like very like BT Bam esque, and there were some parts in Suppression that I listened to, and I was like, this kind of feels a little like Loathe, like Thornhill kind of stuff. And then I was like, oh, okay, so they're bringing piano in, so there's like a little bit like jazz and like Reina Kindo and like that kind of like styling that I was like, almost makes me kind of scratch my head in some way where I'm like, does this actually work? And B, like, the second thing is like, it does work, and here's why it does work. And so like find like I fight with my brain where I'm like, this works, or oh, I don't know how I feel about this. And like I think that's kind of like the magic of it, is that like it simultaneously I feel like could work for people, and it's like, it's like a click of the brain where you're like, yeah, this works. That's like, I like this part. And then there's some people that are like, all right, that's a little too much. All right, like chill it out. Like, we don't need like, an orchestra like in the background just, doing their thing. That's it's not what we're looking for. So I feel like you guys ride that line of like, it's approachable enough where it's not like I need like a musical degree to like break down everything, but I don't feel like it's so like bare minimum that it's like, okay, it's just like, here's the song, like I think you guys
Yeah,
kind of hit that midpoint, maybe a little bit
yeah.
higher in the higher scale, but close to the middle.
I think on this album as well, I think we've deliberately or not, I feel like the choruses and the hooks are more like hooky and chorusy than they were on the last one. Like Paper Bodies, for example, loads of people have said that's just like a big sing-along chorus,
It's true. I mean, this is deliberate, and I'm glad you're saying what you said, Brandon, because it feels like you've really like got it, like you've understood kind of like what we're kind of trying to do. And I think it's kind of half and half. Like, I think if you sit down and try and write something that you want to sound a particular way, then it can very easily go wrong because it just feels forced. It doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel natural. And I think, again, part of the benefit of us having played together for such a long time is there's stuff that one of us can play and we'll be like, yeah, maybe, and then someone else will kind of tweak it and then we're like, oh, that's You and Again Gravity, that's the sound. Like, you can tell quite, I mean, like, oh, that's very us, let's do that. I mean, that is us, maybe we do that too much, I'm not sure. And you have to kind of fight against like, we don't want to do the same thing every time. I think we're our own worst critics when it comes to like not being repetitive, but we are like cognizant of the fact that you do need to repeat stuff in songs, and it needs to be its own package. And again, I think having that like that structure that's kind of self-referential and makes it feel like an actual like cohesive song, as opposed to just a load of riffs and a load of random stuff that anyone could do whatever they want. Like, that it's easy to write loads of weird, really complicated, odd stuff. Like, we could do that if we wanted to, but to try and package it into something that sounds natural and is like memorable is like a whole different ball game.
Yeah, I feel like you guys kind of are like, pardon the analogy, but it's kind of like, I feel like you're almost as if like an animal in like a fence. Like there's a large fence. You guys are like, you have a lot of room to roam, but there's this part where far out in that fencing where you're like, I don't know if we can't go further than that. Like, that might be taking it a little too far. So I think you guys definitely have like a large room to like kind of expand your sound and allow yourself to kind of again roam around in that space. But I don't feel like it's so far out that you're like, okay, like this is very avant-garde, this is like completely like out there, like no offense, we're like just roaming free. I think there's a level, there's a stopping point, I feel like, with your band, and you guys are like, pretty up there, I would say, so it's, but not out of the box. I think you guys still keep it really within the sound, and I think that's kind of what's impressed me over listening to Curious Fake, Paper Bodies, and Suppression, is that like each song specifically, I just feel like you have that sound, and every time that I go in to listen to more of your stuff, I'm like, okay, they hit more of the nail on the head, that like all of the songs just kind of have that sort of thing that you come to expect from your band now. And to me, that's, I think, one of the coolest things. So I'm very excited to delve into the Dancing Blue in August. But I have to ask, guys, what song are you excited for people to listen to, when the album comes out? Because I feel like we might as well get the favorites out there. So is there any song that maybe isn't released, or one that is released that you're excited for people to listen to on the up and coming album?
I'm going to jump in first and say the next single coming out, Character Arc, is probably my favorite track. I think it encapsulates everything that you've just been talking about that we do. Like, it's got a little bit of each of our kind of tendencies in there. It's got a really awesome baritone riff in there, which I'm really proud of, and I'm thrilled that we finally, giving that baritone some room to breathe in this song. Yeah, I think it's kind of like the whole package, your WAG song. So yeah, I'm looking forward to getting that.
Yeah. That is a good one as well. That song has a section at the end where we reference kind of like old school Alexis on Fire as well, which is kind of a cool thing that we've maybe not really done before. I mean, I think my personal favorite song on the album is Curious Fake, that's coming out, but my favorite one to play is a song towards the end of the album called Every Scar a Brushstroke, which it's got like this really cool breakdowny ending. It's got some cool little bass parts in there. We played it live a couple of times. I think we played it at Radar Festival in the UK. So, you know, a few people may have already heard it, but not in all its studio polished glory. So I'm excited for people to hear that one as well.
Completely opposed, but I'm really excited for people to hear the first and last tracks on the album.
Yeah,
because they're kind of like bookends for the whole album. They're not like singles at all. But one of the things that we've been able to do on this album is kind of reference some of the songs within other songs and things like that, which is really, really cool. So those two songs very specifically are kind of like the same idea. There's an intro and outro songs. I mean, they're songs in their own right, and they also sound so big as well. Props to Oz Craggs, who always does our production at Hidden Track Studios. He's unbelievable, and again, like, we've stepped up our sound over the years, but he's also stepped up his production over the years as well. And, like, it's unbelievable how big these tracks sound. And you'll hear like the first track on the album has got a couple of drops in that just got so many layers. It's absolutely huge. But yeah, that's got a bit of the kind of the harmony engine stuff that I've got with my voice. And then again with the kind of the last track, like referencing the first one and then being like bookends, just works really, really well. And I'm kind of excited for people to hear that. It's not usually what we would do.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear about how there's like quite obvious like similarities in the same songs and some more like subtle things as well. So I'm excited for people to kind of uncover that and lay it all on us. It's actually where those songs are where the album title comes from as well. So yeah, they're important ones.
Very excited. I'm going to be going live and reviewing it live for, I know the UK time is going to be very rough. So if you do make it, kudos. It's going to be very early in the morning for you guys, I'm pretty sure. So I'm pretty sure if not, maybe I will do it on a weekend so all the UK fans and homies can come out and listen to it. But I'm excited to delve into it. I think I've said this in the reaction video portions of the videos I've been making, but they've just been they've been so good. Even Suppression, the one that I listened to before we hopped on, I was like, I don't know how they're gonna do it any better. Like this one was so good, and I think that based off of what you guys said before we hopped on about character arc, I'm like, I'm probably gonna eat my words. So I'm looking forward to that.
I hope so.
But I'm very stoked on that, and I think that I love the bookend idea. Like, I think that's very, like, to me, very like old school in that way, where I think that a lot of times, you know, especially for bands, like, you know, right now singles are like the most popular thing, like however many singles you can release and then do it that way. Did you guys ultimately think about doing that route where you guys were just going to keep releasing singles, or were you like, no, I think we got to we have to release the album? I feel like that might be like what we have to do, you know?
Yeah, I think we had this conversation amongst ourselves, and we're like, the smart business thing to do, I guess, if you want to call it that, would be to keep releasing the singles. But we're like, actually, we kind of want to do this for ourselves, right? I mean, I think we're all album people, right? We like listening to a body of work presented and structured in a way that's, you know, this is how it's intended to be listened to. So we just wanted to do that and have something that we could look back and just be like, actually, we're really proud of this and this is sick, like regardless of anything else, really. And I think ultimately that's kind of what it came down to.
Yeah, it was a conscious decision to write an album, as Andy mentioned earlier, like during lockdown when we kind of started writing Curious Fake and Shadowboxing. But it's not always that easy necessarily, because I think like the natural thing is just to write. Like, we all enjoy writing, so obviously like we're just kind of creating stuff, and then there has to be a conscious decision at some point to be like, well, let's do this as an album, and that gave us the freedom as well to create again, like like a sealed off kind of thing. Like this is going to be self-referential. It's going to be like one package. It's going to have like one style, should we say? That's like a really that leads you down that road, and it helps you kind of be a bit more creative because you know what you want the final package to be.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting thought experiment for people that I have on, because I think people either are like so on the train of like, let's release a bunch of singles, let's try to stretch it as much as possible and like try to like put as much promotion into one song, and then we'll move on to the next song and put as much promotion as we can into that. And I get, I certainly get that from, someone who does YouTube content, like, and does social media stuff. Like I understand the necessity for bands to release singles in that way. However, I am older, and I think for me personally, like I grew up on albums. So to me, that's like always been something that I love, even though I think financially is probably not the smartest choice, certainly for bands. I could say that very like candidly. But I do think that there's so much more that is involved with like album writing in terms of like storyline and like the way that bands kind of like creatively put songs together and like the structure of everything. Because to me, it's like, it's that in and of itself is almost like an art, where you're like, okay, they're trying to specifically tell you a story, and if you are just going to continue to release singles, like maybe that storyline will get lost, or like it might not have the same sort of meaning as in like an album where you can listen to it front to back and you can kind of get that whole thing. I almost attribute it similarly to like if you were to watch like a TV series and we were just to take like episodes out of the series, like would the show still mean the same thing if you took some episodes out of the TV series? Probably not, because now you're missing out on like context that you don't have anymore because it's just like in a specific bubble. So, but I understand the financial load that bands unfortunately have to be forced with, because creativity unfortunately is not paid out in that way as much as like a movie or a TV show is. So if you like the band, please go support them. Go do it. Links below. Go check out You Win Again Gravity.
I think we found a bit of a middle ground though, because originally we had the album, and before releasing any songs, our plan was we were just going to drop the album, right? Just release the whole thing. And then we started working with a digital marketing manager, and he was like, no. Like, that's not the way to do it. We were just because we've been working on these songs for 3 years. We were just so excited to release them, and he was like, no, like do this. So that we came up with this plan, this structured plan to release the song. So although we're releasing singles, they're still from the album, they're still part of this cohesive whole, and they still kind of make sense in that form as well.
Yeah, I mean technically we would have released 6 out of the 11 tracks by the time it's done.
I think so. Yeah,
Recursive and Lights are both on the album as well, so that is still quite a lot of the album to release. But you're right that like the modern like trend is to just release pretty much all of them, and that makes a lot of sense, right? Because like every time you release something, there's buzz around it, and then you can basically just try and keep up that buzz like the whole time, over and over and over again. The problem with us is obviously like once we've released the album, we then have to write a load more music, which we have started doing. To be fair, there's other stuff which is happening, which is great, but it's like once you've released the album, you've blown your load. That's it. It's done. So like that's the point where you need to you can kind of play more shows and do the other half of it and prep for the next releases.
It's a little bit of like a dopamine hit, right? That's how I kind of see it, is where bands release a single and it's just like, oh yeah, this is sick. And then like a month later, like I see so many comments at like once the single's been released, and they're like, hey man, so like, like I know you released that song and that was really sick, but like when's the next song coming out? And then they don't have any, like, obviously they're not going to spoil their plans, or maybe be like, oh, you just have to wait and see. There's new stuff coming. Like, the atypical joke that bands, big things coming, but But
funny you say. I think we saw had like a YouTube comment or something the other day on. I think it might have been on Suppression, saying like, "Oh, I can't wait to see what's next after this album." And we were like, "Love that you're such a huge fan, but this album's not even out yet." But great that you're thinking ahead to the next thing already.
Yeah. Maybe he went to the
that.
future. Maybe he saw into what your future
You
material
can give
is.
us some tips.
Yeah. I don't know. That might fly under the guise of, like, you don't want to tamper with the past, so maybe he's just here to leave a YouTube comment, who knows? I don't know. If you did leave that YouTube comment, let us know down here in my comments.
Yeah, we want to hear.
I want to know. Are you a time traveler? We swear we won't tell anyone.
That is what you want. Let us know what you're gonna hear from album number 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd like to. I would like to hear that. I think the other thing that we're considering with album number 3 as well is, like, do we actually go full concept? Do we write a full concept album and have all the lyrics? Like, I mean, as we've said, like, a few of these songs kind of reference each other, and it's but it's not like a full concept album. There's not it's not completely like structured like that thing. And I think, like, that's the next step. Do we throw everything at the wall and be like, right, let's do it. Like, let's knuckle down and write an entire thing. I think Andy, the other Andy, who's the guitarist, is, like, really keen on doing this, and this is where kind of the first couple of kind of song ideas that we've got right now sound a little bit different. So there's always, like, room for progression.
Yeah, I think he's very attached to the idea of writing, like, this 20-minute odyssey as well. So we'll see if that ever comes back.
That's it.
Wait, one song being 20 minutes?
Yeah, one song. Yeah.
I don't think we'll have any trouble reaching that, though, because in our writing, we frequently go, right, okay, that's great. How long is that so far? 7 minutes? Oh, okay.
That's true. Yeah.
You guys are really trying to chip away at the, like, Dream Theater, like, block. That's all I'm saying. That I don't think I could listen. I feel like I have the patience of a saint, but I don't think I could do a 20-minute song. That's a lot. And then I'd have to sit here and critique all 20 minutes of that song. I don't think I could do that.
It's bad for content creators. They're like, well, I can't do a 40-minute video. Come on,
I do it anyway.
Yeah, exactly. But as Johnny said, a lot of our songs naturally come out long because we play with each section probably has its own thing going on, and then we'll repeat a couple of sections and we're like, right, the next step is to, like, take a step back and then trim off all of that fat so it gets back down to, like, a regular level. And I think that's what we're doing kind of more of recently than perhaps we used to do. I mean, Anonymity was still pretty tight, I suppose. But, like, I mean, prior to that, there's all sorts of stuff that we wrote which is just very woolly. Like, that idea, like, goes on for too long and it doesn't go anywhere. Or, there's loads of stuff that we listen to that we think, right, we would never have done that now.
So I do feel like you guys keep it interesting. Like, that's kind of like my biggest selling point to people who haven't checked out You Win Again Gravity is, like, each section. Like, I feel like if I got tiresome in one part, like, it completely shifts gears and goes into something else. And that to me is, like, I think arguably the crucial component of your band is that, like, your willingness to shift gears in that way where it doesn't feel like, okay, they're just doing it because it's, like, maybe that's, like, the more math core kind of style of music. I think it's, like, very, again, surgical in that way where you're like, okay, so we have this one really cool, like, syncopated, like, dumb riff that we're gonna fit into here. What are we going to shift to next? And then it's, like, this really, like, open, like very, like, beautiful kind of, like, piano part, and then, obviously Jack singing in that part or something, obviously just metaphorically, but, like, I think that to me that's kind of that shift in the way that you guys kind of go about it is like, oh, okay, it's intentional. It's not like, okay, we stop and then we move on to the next thing, we stop, we move on to the next thing. It's just like this nice flow into the next state, and I think that's what continues to keep my, like, brain chugging along with the song, where it's like, okay, this is cool, all right, this next part's cool, all right, I like this part even more. And then I think it just kind of builds to then, once you get to the end of the song, and then you're like, all right, when is this album coming out? Because I don't know if I can wait. I don't know if I can wait, like, 3 months from now.
Yeah, I think it's just part of, like, growing as a songwriter. Like, I remember being in bands when I was like 15, 16, and the songs are just riff soup, right? You've just written all these cool riffs and you want everyone to hear all these cool riffs. So you just put them all together and that's a song. You don't really think about it is a song. You just want to show off cool parts.
Sure.
And you get to a point and you realize, actually, although that's a cool part, what is it serving the song? What's it doing in the context of everything else? And it's like having those questioning, does this part belong, and all that sort of thing that makes it good and makes it feel natural and just keeps you invested, as you say.
Yeah, I think I talked about that a little bit in that Paper Bodies kind of breakdown video, but like there was, when I was in university, I did like music technology, and I remember creating a fair bit of music in university. And one of the lecturers said to me at some point, he was talking about moments in music. He was like, "You've got like here are some good moments, and then you never reference these again. Like, what was the point of these things? Like, what?" And it always stuck with me, this kind of thing, where he was like, "Okay, well, just bring it back to here. Like, I don't know why you've hit writer's block at this point, because you've done all the ideas. You don't need more ideas. It doesn't need to develop any further. You've got them all. It's just a case of like using them and then like tying those ideas together." So like, I think that's a natural part of, as Andy said, but it's also thinking about, I think the obvious thing to think about is like whether we've got like a clean section or a heavy section. It's like, is it quiet or is it loud? But it's I think the more that you think about that, there's also other ways to differentiate between parts. Is it moving a lot? Does it have a lot of like harmonic shift in terms of how quickly chords are changing, or is it just like the timbre of like the whole section? Is it like really raucous and like nasty sounding, or is it like quite sweet and smooth? But like, there's so many different ways to do this, as opposed to just being like, well, there's clean guitar, so I'll sing, and now there's this distorted guitar, so I'll scream. Like that's a very simple way of doing it. But like once you start like digging down through these layers, like you can get quite creative with it.
Yeah, I think some of like where you kind of mix the unexpected, as you were saying there, like if you have like clean with like screaming or something, I think that it adds to the like emotional intensity. I'm thinking of bands like Being as an Ocean or something like that, where it's just so intense, like emotionally intense, and it just adds to the whole thing.
We had a comment on our Suppression YouTube video recently, and it was a really small comment, but it really resonated with me. And it was someone just saying, like, I love this new song. It's so unusual but good, or something like that. And it was just that one word, unusual, that really kind of, it gave me a bit of renewed faith in what we're doing, because I think everyone strives to be unusual in their bands. I mean, a lot of bands don't, obviously, but yeah, but that's what I got from that.
Name some names, Johnny. Come on.
Let's
not slagging off of them.
Andy's like, we just see Johnny's screen go black, and then he never comes back. He just leaves the interview. He's like, "Oh man, I've done myself a hole." No, I probably would agree with that comment. I think that I would say maybe unusual might not be the right word. I think that you guys kind of have this, I would say, eclectic. That's, to me, I think that's like a better phrase of unusual. And not to discount the comment, you did a good job, but I think just eclectic, because the way that you guys kind of, again, process these sorts of sounds and really kind of arrange them in a unique way, that I feel like most bands right now, like, you're not going to be able to see them take the types of changes that you guys go through in music. Like, at least from my perspective, I think other bands like, the Contortionists, like being as an Ocean, obviously, as Andy referenced earlier, like, I think, some of those bands do stuff that's a little bit out of the realm of what's considered, I guess, norm within the scene. And I think that's kind of what, again, keeps me interested in what you guys do. And I think that's what I would hope people go into listening to your stuff, is that's that renewed interest in listening to something and being like, wow, this is so different, or this changed up in a unique way that I wasn't expecting. And I hope that inspires people to write stuff that, especially if they enjoy stuff that isn't like that even keel sort of like, oh, this is exactly what the song should be. Like, I would hope that bands kind of go out and be a little bit more adventurous and try different things, because I think you get stuff like this that's just like, holy shit, like, wow, this is great. Like, this is so out there, but like, it's so melodically sound in that way that you're like, man, this is so enjoyable. Now, like, I want to go back and listen to it and pick out things that I didn't pick out the first time around. And I did go back and listen to Curious Fake and Paper Bodies after I done the reaction, and I was like, man, there was some stuff I really missed out on that I wouldn't have picked up on if I didn't listen to it in depthly, or however however it is. But I think that going back and listening to it after the fact was great, because there are some really cool like nuggets in the song that I think I overlooked watching the video. And I was like, oh man, I should have pointed that out. That would have been really neat. And now I like kind of second guess some of the parts in the video, but also at the same point, it's very much a first listen in the moment, like what I liked, what I pointed out, and I would highly recommend people going to listen to You Win Again, Gravity. There's always links in the description, so if you want to go check them out, go follow them.
Yeah, go listen to Brandon reviewing the tracks as well. I really enjoyed watching those videos. I mean, you've said that you're kind of second guessing it, but like I think part of the beauty about watching those videos is your like genuine, honest reaction. That's great to watch. Right? I think just you don't have to. You could pre-record it and you could edit it and you could say all these wonderful, insightful things, but you've lost like the magic of like this initial like first listen. I think that's a really cool idea. I'm glad you do it.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, well, I'm excited to do the album live because I think that's when there's not going to be any goofy editing, me zooming in. Like, it's just going to be raw and just like me in the moment listening to the album, and I think getting all of the joys of experiencing it, and then also reliving kind of the joys of the songs that will be released by the time this comes out, and just being like, oh man, this part was so sick. I remember listening to it earlier in the year and I was like, this is awesome. So I'm excited to just break it down a little bit more and delve into it. Like I said to the guys, I have a strong suspicion they're gonna be up on my albums of the year list. So either you guys can come back to this and tell me I'm wrong, or you can agree with me. So that's left to be decided. We still got a couple months in between, but I'm pretty stoked. But in regards to new music, what have you guys been listening to lately? What's kind of on the Spotify? What have you guys been jamming to recently?
I've been listening to a lot of it's a band that we toured with a couple of months ago, actually, a band called Blighttown from the UK. They're sick as hell. You should definitely check them out. They dropped an EP at the end of last year, I think, called It Lives. If you haven't listened to that, I'd highly recommend checking them out. It's sick.
Okay.
I've been listening to two things that are probably quite far apart. A band called Sweet Pill released an album.
Yes.
Was it this year?
It was. I don't know if they released the album this year, but they're close to where I live, so I've seen them before. Nice. They're great. Yeah.
Oh, big fan of them. And again, that's one of those things that I listened to and I was like, this is different. This is unique. I love it. Like, I'm excited about listening to it. I think mainly because I really enjoy the note choices that the singer chooses. I mean, that's great. And then you've got like some really, really great music underneath as well. And then in complete comparison, Go Penguin released the new album also very, very recently. That's like jazz. So completely different, but I've been listening to both of them. They're great.
I've not really been listening to many new stuff lately, and I think Spotify has kind of screwed me here a little bit because it auto creates playlists for you, doesn't it? And one of them is your most played songs of 2022. And I just love everything that's in that playlist. And it's just, I'll get in the car on the way to work and I think, no, come on, let's push boundaries. Let's put the release radar on for a bit. And the first song I'll be like, didn't like that. And then the second one was like, that was a shit song. Well, and then I just immediately go straight back to what I know I'm enjoying. And I'd listen to that a few more times. But
what was that shit song, Johnny? Name the names, Johnny. Come on.
They don't have any impact on me, so I just immediately discarded them.
Oh, it's great. You can start beef with other bands, but you can also start beef with Spotify if you want. So I love how you're like, your most played 2022 is just going to turn into your most played 2023 as well.
It's just a self-fulfilling cycle.
It's going to be like the Spider-Man meme where they're like, Johnny's 2023, Johnny's 2022.
To be honest, most of my actual new discoveries of bands come from these guys here. Like, someone will like something enough to share it with us, and then I'll listen to it a few times. I'll get really into it as well. So yeah, that's my biggest source of new music, I would say, at the moment. Yeah. Hey, old music is good too, you know.
You mentioned Loathe earlier as well. I don't think I've heard an album a new album that I've liked more than's come out since then. Like, that album is just chef's kiss.
It is. Great. Yeah, I think it's. I would argue is one of the seminal albums of the decade. I'd argue. You know, I think it's that good. And if you haven't listened to Loathe, go do it. They're fantastic.
Yeah. I'm stoked to see them. I'm going to see them twice this year at Outbreak Festival and then at Oxford Festival. So
how many times have you seen them now, Andy?
It's only like, I think this will be my 5th or 6th time this year seeing them. Can't get
In
enough.
2 years.
Yeah, it's quite a lot. But...
Well, I'm pretty stoked because in September they're opening for Chevelle and 3 Days Grace.
Yes, I saw that.
Wild.
Yeah.
So I'm seeing them on the first date of that with my shouts to my best friend Daryl. He's coming up to Philly. So we're seeing them the first day he comes to visit. And then the following day we're seeing Sleep Token on the first date of their tour here in the States. So I'm pretty pumped. Two fantastic UK bands, so I'm pretty hyped about it. And then I'm gonna try to see if we can go to the Wonder Years is doing like they're starting their tour off for the Greatest Generation, obviously in Philly, of course, but they have a festival that's going on with like a bunch of different bands. I think Sweet Pill's actually playing that as well, so it's gonna be great. I don't know, Jack, you'll have to come to Philadelphia that weekend.
Well, do you know what? I'm actually flying to New York in a couple of months to go watch Botch, because I was very. I mean, they kind of like casually reformed and started playing shows again, and I was like, I missed out on it in the early 2000s. They broke up in 2003 or whatever, and I was really upset that they were one of those bands that I was like, they're the one that got away. Like I never got to see them. And then they casually reformed and just like started playing shows again. I was like, what the hell? But then they announced nothing for the UK for ages, and I was like, they're not going to come to this. So I just bought tickets in New York and was like, right, I'm just going to fly out and see them because I just can't pass this up. It turns out they are doing a couple of shows next year in the UK, but whatever.
Hey, I mean, why not? Vacation, yeah.
That's the furthest anyone's ever travelled for one specific gig. I mean, festivals aside, you know.
There must be worse. People are worse than me.
Do you reckon?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah.
You can't pass up Botch. It's nothing like them.
I was convinced for ages they were going to be the final headliner at that festival I mentioned earlier, Arctangent, and it wasn't so, unfortunately.
That's going to be great too. That lineup is insane. You guys have some really good festivals coming up. I'm not going to lie. So
yeah, I'm very upset. I'm not at Download this weekend. I could be watching Metallica in a couple of hours, but I'm just at home.
Boo.
Boo. And you would have not been here, and I think that's more upsetting, you know.
Yeah.
What?
Very true.
That's
Arctangent is a festival that we really want to play. So if anyone, I've been going for like 5, 6, 7 years, something stupid like that.
I got you, Jack. I got you. So listen, Arctangent. Listen.
Someone put away.
Go have this band on your lineup. You will not be disappointed. You know, they're prog heads. So come on, like I feel like you got to have them on next year. I'm gonna vote. If there is a poll, I am going to share the fuck out of that poll, and you guys better vote for them because I'll be very disappointed. I'll actually, you know what? If they get voted in, maybe I'll fly out. Just saying.
Yes.
Oh,
so that's what we want.
That's my push. So I'll do it.
Action. Nice. It's huge. This is huge.
Arctangent, let's go.
Oh yeah, 100%, 100%. We play. You can come on, watch us from the side of the stage. It'd be great.
Can I do the atypical guy that's in the background with that stands by like the soundboard and he just does one of these? I'm just side stage. I just have earbuds in. I'm just like
completely motionless with no emotion. Just like,
I think I would need to see the Brandon face. Like when I look over for a bit of encouragement, I'd need to see that.
Should I just do the real life reaction? I'm like. Like a breakdown hits, I'm like, oh my god, and then I start like running around the stage in like a circle. You know. Okay,
and you're perfect place for a stage dive as well. You could literally get all that momentum from the back of the stage.
I feel so. I used to do it when I was much younger. And didn't have, had arguably probably better health care. So, if I did get injured, then I'd be okay. But now that I've turned 30 this year, I'm like, yeah, maybe you shouldn't be doing this. So then, I feel like slowly over time, I have migrated to the dude with the earbuds in his ears, and then his, my arms get kind of crossed, not all the way yet. So I haven't fully evolved yet, but I'm getting there. So, eventually
well, that's the
That's
the
where I am.
advantage of UK gigs and festivals is the free healthcare for when you do fall. So yeah.
We don't care. We don't
don't care.
Get hurt. Why not? Get a couple of days off work.
You're like, healthcare is for everyone here. So.
Yeah.
I don't know about America. Excuse me. Fuck America, man. Go on. You guys got great healthcare. All right, well, I'll make sure to tell my job that I was like, yeah, so, I stage dive and now I'm stuck here. So
yeah, exactly.
It's been nice knowing you guys. Now I have to try to migrate my computer, my cat, everything over to the UK now. It's going to be a whole mess, but it's all right. But yeah, Art Tangent, listen, I'm telling you, there's a poll. I'm going to answer that shit and I'm going to share it and I'm going to say, you win against Gravity. If you don't have them on, I'm going to be very disappointed. I'm not upset. I'll just be disappointed, so. And you don't want that. I've been doing this for a long time. So, I know some people. So, but anyway, guys, the next question I have for you is, what is your Mount Rushmore of bands? Like, I don't know if you're familiar with Mount Rushmore, but there's 4 heads on the Mount Rushmore. So, like, what are 4 very influential bands that you wouldn't be in the music scene without these 4 artists?
Do we get 4 each, or is it 4 between us?
Oh, it's 4 each. Yeah, I'm not an
4
asshole.
Each. Okay.
I would hope not. Yeah.
Oh
God.
One. I think so when I first started getting into heavier music, I was a thrash kid. So I think Metallica have to be up there. First 4 albums, Metallica for sure. And then I think another one would be early, Lower Than Atlantis. Those first couple of albums for me are great. Tempted to put Loathe up there as well.
Ooh,
this is very, very off the cuff.
Cuff.
And then I don't know. Someone else can go while I think of my last one.
Making a few notes.
I was going to say, Johnny, you like writing?
Yeah, Johnny, dearest daughter. Yeah,
oh,
I just imagine Johnny doing a British overdub of this moment. He's like, dearest diary. He's like, Brandon asked me the most interesting of questions today.
And that's when it hit me.
Yeah. I don't know which band to pick.
Yeah, this is a very difficult question.
It's
one of those things and these things change over time. If you asked me 5 years ago,
I did.
No new bands may have come out that I'd be listening to, but my answer will have changed because I've changed. That's the thing.
I mean, I did ask you 5 years ago, Jack. We've been mates for 5 years, so that technically is accurate.
Yeah,
not this
absolutely.
question.
It changes day to day as well.
Yeah.
It changes day to day.
Also, it's I'm not gonna. I will answer the question. I'm being a politician.
You're
right
stalling.
I
got
it. Is it I could pick out bands that that influenced me when I was younger and got me into music.
Sure.
And, started writing music. And if I was to do that, then probably people like Dream Theater would be on there because that's when I was a child. That's what I was listening to, or Pink Floyd. But realistically, that's not what I would choose nowadays. Two that immediately come to mind. 3 actually. I'll do 3 right now. Ocean Size, we talk about them in our little bios and stuff like that. They were my huge musical crush during university, and it never really changed. I just think they're incredible. Mike Venart from Ocean Size now plays with Biffy Clyro, and Empire State Bastard, who are headlining. They're playing at Art Tangent. They're this super group. It's Mike Venart from Ocean Size,
Simon Neil.
Simon, yeah.
From Biffy Clyro, and then the drummer from
Dave Lombardo from Slayer. Yeah.
There you go. You can see how interest is all on Ocean Size. But yeah, they're a massive, and they're also a big influence on the way we sound, I think, because all of us got into Ocean Size. Completely the other end of the scale. I mean, Botch. I don't know where I would be without Botch. They were just, it's incredible for me. And in a similar vein, actually, a Textbook Tragedy, I still listen to nowadays. Crushingly heavy, but so creative and so much fun and such good riffs. And it's still a couple of years go by, and I remember that they exist, and then I just spend a month just listening to them and nothing else. The other one I'll throw in there just for fun. I haven't listened to them in a little while. But Town Portal if you've ever heard of them.
Mm.
Go listen to them. The instrumental band from, I think, Denmark. But yeah, 3 of them, and just like, again, I think if you listen to them, you'll notice a couple of things that we do that are really similar. And like harmonically, I think they've got like I just love the way they write music. Really, really cool.
Can I go?
Yes.
Me talk now? All right.
He was down there writing a memoir, so I feel like he's got a lot to say. So,
I mean, do we have time for you to go, Johnny? Or...
I mean, yeah, it's a pretty impulsively written list, to be honest, but I've got a reason behind each one.
Oh, okay.
So, Nirvana, because they were the first rock band that I ever really heard, and I absolutely adored them for much of my teenage years. Styled myself on Kurt Cobain. I was just into that whole vibe that they had going on.
Sure,
Don't get their vibe, you know. I've gone for Lamb of God on here because I think they were the most influential bridging point from like rock into more of a metal sound. They were the ones that stuck with me for longest. I remember learning all of their songs on guitar. I was just absolutely fascinated by, you know, what you could do on guitar. Some of those crazy riffs that they were doing, I was like, this is cool. I put Converge on my list because I don't think I ever would have found them by myself. I remember Jack showed it to us at a garden party one summer, and it was just the most chaotic, horrible sounding thing you could imagine. And I think I remember laughing as we heard it and going, this isn't music? What's this? But I think they go back to one of those points you made earlier, Brandon, about bands having a unique sound. Like, you could never mistake Converge for being another band. There are other bands that go for that hardcore punk, you know, fast drumming type thing, but you'd never mistake Converge. And yeah, they've been a huge influence for me, and Jack and James as well, I would say. I wonder if the other boys can guess what my number 4 would be. Most important one for me.
Dillinger?
No.
Oh, that's a good pick. Jack's really thinking.
You must know.
Am I thrown in on this? Do I have to also guess?
You can have a guess if you want. I probably mentioned them in our last interview quite extensively.
Contortionists? Not Contortionists?
The Sugar Boys.
Oh, of course.
Oh, nice.
King
That's
of
a good one.
bands. King of the...
The 3 of us and other Andy in the band went to go see him live last year at the Royal Albert Hall, which, if you don't know, is a really prestigious, nice venue in the UK, and it was fucking great. It was so good.
I'm so impressed that they've been around for as long as they've been around. They're still sounding unique. They're still finding ways to be different with each album. Yeah, they're the kings for me.
That's a great pick.
I, in a similar kind of way to Textbook, like when I listen to Meshuggah, nothing else but Meshuggah will do for like a week and a half. Like, I can't really listen to anything else because it just doesn't scratch the same itch. You know what I mean? Like, I really have to like get really tired of Meshuggah before I then turn it off, and then I can listen to all other music again. Like, it's really weird.
You have to get it out of your system.
Yeah.
All right, Andy, you have one final one.
So this is just thinking now, but Johnny saying Lamb of God reminded me, I think I'm going to say Trivium. It's like mainly for nostalgia. I think Gunshot to the Head of Trepidation was the first song that I heard with like proper screaming in it, and I was like, what is this? And that opened up so many new avenues to like so many of the bands that I listen to now. So I don't know if I'd be like into the same music I am now if I hadn't heard that song when I was like 12 or something like that. So just for nostalgia and for getting me into the scene, like, I'm gonna say Trivium, I think.
Yeah, Matt Heafy is salutes. What a guy.
Yeah, I've seen probably aside from Alone, I've seen them like 7 or 8 times. They're up there with the highest number of bands that I've seen.
That's impressive. I gotta give you that, Andy. The next question I have for you guys is, you know, obviously I asked your favorite off of the upcoming album, Into the Dancing Blue, but I also have to ask, what is a deep cut? What is one song that you feel like in your catalog of music that does not get as much love as it should, and that you would love to see get a little bit more love? So
I got mine. I know mine. Jack, you go first. You
I've got mine as well.
Go on, you go first. You had your hand up straight away.
Snakes on Paper. I love that song.
Ooh, all right.
If you want a deep cut, that's the one. I think it's great. I just love it. I don't know what else to say about it. It's got like it's got a bit of everything, but I just think it's just one of those. Something was really vibing when we were writing that one. It just worked. Love it.
Swept to the waves and lost for me. I heard that song and I was like, this just slaps so hard. It's just great.
I guess it's different as well for Andy because he wasn't in the band when we wrote.
Yeah, I joined post anonymity.
Yeah.
So I remember like Jack showing me his band and I was like, these guys are sick. And then got the chance to join the band and I was like, yeah, obviously I'm going to join this sick band.
It would have been really funny if Andy was like, yeah, these guys are sick. And he's just like, he goes to someone else and you're like, this fucking loser showed me his band now. And this sucks. I hate this. Time signatures? What the fuck are those things?
I mean, I don't think that's rare. But yeah, he lived with me at the time, so like there was no getting away.
You wouldn't have heard the end of it.
I'm so deep in the lie now that I can't get out.
Yeah, it's gone way too long now.
It would have been too late for you.
I remember hearing that song and I was just hooked instantly. It's such a great song, like the weird rhythm to start with, and then like the way it breaks down with like just the bass, and yeah, it's just great.
I would agree.
Am I allowed to pick a song that's not on anonymity? Can it be anything? No,
it could be anything. Yeah, it's any back catalog song. Yeah.
I didn't even remember the name of this song. We were calling it Oddlip for a while. Does that have a proper name, Jack?
No, that's what it was. Oh, I mean, quote unquote, released as. It's still on
one of the
Bandcamp.
Does it Reflect the Change? It's on Reflect the Change.
Yeah, it was our first EP under this name, shall we say?
Yeah, I used to love that song. I remember one of the sections of that song came about because I heard a bit of a Mastodon song and there was a specific drum rhythm he was doing. And I tried to turn it into like a chuggy riff instead. And then we all agreed it was too stock, but everyone liked that rhythm. And we thought, how can we use that rhythm somewhere else? And we turned it into a riff in the song. Do you know the one I mean, Jack?
The verse one?
No,
oh yeah,
that whole bit. Like, I think there's a lot of cool sections in that song. It does definitely represent a more underdeveloped kind of immature You Win Again Gravity, I suppose. But I love it. I've always had a soft spot for that song.
I mean, this is the thing. Like we re-recorded. I Learned to Stop Asking, which was from that first EP, and that obviously made it onto anonymity as well. But I mean, there's no reason why we couldn't, refresh some of those older songs. We've considered it with a few of them, and not necessarily just like re-recording it, but like, tweaking up some of the bits that we're like, well, that was a bad choice, and there's a few things that we could do to it, and obviously it would benefit from some production that wasn't done by us in my bedroom at the time. Like, we're talking 2011 or 2012, I think, when this was done. So.
Wow, that's a while ago. So that predates my channel, I believe. So that's a long time. Well, that's how I realized. That's how I realized I put it in time perspective. I'm like, does it predate my channel? Yeah, that's old. Yeah, that's all I think about now, guys. So if you ask me anything pre 7 years ago, I don't get it. You have to tell me, oh, okay, before the channel, okay, cool. Because it's only lane I think in.
Those EPs didn't make it to Spotify. They didn't quite pass the litmus test for that. But you can on Bandcamp, they're still there if you want to dig into that.
I will say, Andy, that you're wrong, and actually, Brightly Coloured Landscapes was on Spotify for a while. Because it's still there,
anymore, is it?
But just not anymore. And then it's basically, guys, if you want to go and hear it, don't go and find it. We might re-record them if we want to.
I think that might actually be the first time a band will say, "Don't listen to our music."
If you're going to listen to it, just remember how young we were, and how rough and how difficult it was for us to like even put stuff down at the time. It was like. But yeah, there's some great ideas and stuff going on in that EP, but you've got to take it,
sure,
as it's in its time.
It's a time capsule.
They're not bad songs at all. It's just obviously by our standard now, just the production's a little bit rough, and everything's just not quite as polished in general. But there's definitely not bad songs at all. I
would agree. I think that oftentimes, like, when I go back and watch like some of the first interviews I've done, I'm like, cringe. This hurts. Like I'm just like, I feel like. Nominally, I've gotten a little bit better with the interview process over the years, and I think like you got to, people are like, oh, you should just take down your first like videos and stuff, like if you don't feel like they're good. And I'm just like, no. I was like, I go back and watch them because I think it shows me that how much you're able to grow as, you know, whether you're a content creator, musician, artist, whatever. Like, you know, you figure your first painting is probably not going to be the best, but you know, like your most current painting might be like better, you know? And so I think that to me is like being able to show that growth off, and as well as that, like knowing that my abilities as an interviewer have gotten better. I think that's also like cool to see the progress that I've made. So if you want to go back and listen to old You Win Again Gravity, it's already in the description. You can check it out. If not, then that's also fine. You should just check out like Curious Fake, Paper Body, Suppression. You know, those are some new stuff. So, you know, I'm pretty stoked on that, nonetheless. But the last question I have for you guys is a big one. This one is probably, I don't think I asked you guys this the last time, so I'm curious on this one for you. But as you know, I love interviewing bands. This has been a large part of my life for nominally 7 years of that time frame. But you know, why do you guys create music? Because I think oftentimes we think about it from the space of like, oh yeah, new music. I want to hear a new song. That's sick. Like I love new music. But I find that like dichotomy of like I love being able to like talk with bands and have that like connection with them. Um, but as well as that, obviously love new music. I'm not gonna ever say no to new music. But you know, why is making music a passion to you, considering how like arduous and how long of a time you guys take to like create and really meticulously go over these songs? Like it obviously must be of a large importance to you guys to spend that much amount of time doing it. So you know, why is it important to you guys, and why do you continue to do it?
Can I come in with a hot take right off the bat? So
Yeah, go ahead, shoot it, Johnny.
Links back to what we were saying previously about, you know, earlier work and whether you like it or whether or not you should make it available. I think one thing that really appeals to me about putting music out there is that you're leaving something behind, and you're something is there as like a record of that, a snapshot in time almost. You know, I look forward to one day, if I ever have kids, for example, showing my kids or my grandkids, like, oh, check this thing out that we recorded in the lofty years of 2022, and to some extent, you know, it's going to be around forever.
Yeah,
I guess maybe not. I don't know how
yeah,
it works, but
we'll see.
Yeah. What about you guys?
I think so. There's just something very rewarding about creating something like from the ground up. Like, you know, someone has a riff and then you're like, oh yeah, this bass part would sound cool under that. And then like just building up and fleshing it out is very, very rewarding. And it's just fun. Like just 5 close friends get in a room and just like, it's just a fun process. Like, I think ultimately, like, if we weren't having fun, we wouldn't be doing this. Like, we don't really get any financial benefit from this, like, or anything like that. It's not anything like that. It's just fun. And also as well, like playing live is just such a release. Like I love playing live, like on the other side of the coin, just jumping around and just screaming and stuff like that. It's all just fun, basically, is my answer.
Yeah, I kind of like want to dovetail into that answer and just say, like, yeah, I mean, it's a great excuse to hang out with 4 other people that I love, and like this is a brilliant. There's some truth to the fact that like people like Johnny, who I've known since I was like 4 years old, how many, yeah, something like that. So we've known each other like 31 years or something now, which is mad. And part of the reason that we get to stay so much in touch is because we have this band and we have this like shared thing that we do, which is incredible. But I think on the other side of it, I don't think I will ever stop writing music because I love creating stuff, and I think that's the most one of the most enjoyable parts of the band, as Andy said, is being able to just create something and play around with stuff and experiment. And like, I think, yeah, fair enough. I think recently we've put a bit more focus into kind of creating recognizable products and songs and things like that. But like, that's also part of it. That's like working to a brief almost. It's still really fun to be able to do that. So yeah, even before the band was formed, I was writing music. If the band ever splits up, I'll continue writing music. It's just going to always be there, and I feel like we just get so much joy out of being able to create something and just play around. And like, if you've, I feel like it's just natural where I hear something. If I hear a new piece of music, I'm like, I wonder what I would have done in this scenario. Like, oh, would I have done that? I'm not sure. That's a really cool thing. And as you said, like listening to music that you like immediately sparks off this kind of like creative thread in your head. Like I'm somewhere else immediately, like on the piano, thinking like, oh, I could do this, or like it just never ends. It's constant kind of like thing in the back of your head that's always just like generating stuff. It's really interesting to think about, but it's just this like creative urge. I think.
Yeah, you can just create music that you want to hear, right? As you said before,
Sure,
you're like
yeah.
you hear a song, you're like, oh, that I wouldn't have done that, or oh, I think this could be different or something. Like the beauty of making your own music is that you could make it exactly what you want it to be. Obviously there's trials and tribulations, and sometimes it's hard, but ultimately it's under your control. You can make it what you want to be.
Yeah, and then the other thing that happens is when you hear something and you're like, I wish I could have written that. that happens all the time, and it's just like one of those things where I think that's when I like fall for a band really hard, because I'm like, oh, I wish that was me that did that. That's so cool. That's a good idea. Yeah.
No, I think you guys all had really good takes on it. I would probably agree yeah, I mostly aligned with Johnny's statement. Like that's probably why I wind up doing interviewing too, is like, I can like, my sister had a baby, and so I'm an uncle, so like I can show my niece this and be like, hey, this is your dumb uncle, doing shit online. But like to me it's like it kind of finds that cross between, which is like that I love music and I've always like wanted to kind of write my own material, but maybe just haven't had the time or effort to really delve into it. So it's nice to get the perspective of other bands and how they go through that process, and how also it's intriguingly difficult for them as well to like have 5 members get into a room or have to do it remotely or whatever it may be, right? Like there is that necessity to like try to get everybody under one roof or whatever. But I also think at the same point, like it inspires me to know that like whatever level of dedication that you have for your artistry, like you're going to take that extra time to like be like, okay, we're gonna drive out to Jack's house because like we have to record this, and like there's that level of time that you're taking out of your life to dedicate to making music. And I think that oftentimes we're just like, new music now, when is new track dropping, like all this sort of stuff. And I think there's a lot of things that I hope that people kind of take a step back in regards to bands and being like, listen, like they have their lives that they live on a daily basis and they have other shit that they have to do. But like for the sheer fact that they carve out some of their free time or a lot of their free time to make music that you guys can hear, I think is such a cool thing. And oftentimes it is a little bit downplayed comparatively to like other things. Like you feel like a person that paints isn't going to be like, so when's my painting dropping, like no one's out there like knocking on someone's door for like a new Picasso piece or some shit, like. So I think for me it's, or like movies, same thing, like people will patiently wait for a movie to come out. I think that's the same sort of process that I take in regards to like listening to music, is like very similarly to like a movie or a TV series I like to watch. Like I am like obviously much like everybody else very hyped, very excited for new stuff, but I also understand that like there's a process, it takes time, and that I hope that people have that level of like respect for what bands are putting out and the amount of time that they take to do this stuff, because it requires an army. So I think that for them to spend the time to do it, I hope that everybody checks out Into the Dancing Blue. So this is a perfect segue into the last point, guys. You can tell them where you can find You Win Again Gravity, what you guys have coming up in the next couple months. This is coming out like first week of July, around that time. So there's a new song dropping. So very excited about that, and you guys can tell them, give them the spiel, tell them what's going on.
Character Arc, new single, 7th of July. There's going to be a music video with that, so watch out for that.
Woo!
Album is dropping August 4th, I think. Might want to fact check me on that, but I think it's August 4th.
Yeah.
I'll go check.
We're in the process of organising a tour on the back of that as well, so that might be announced, and then it might be announced by the time this comes out, actually. So I'm not going to get told off announcing too early, but that'll be announced very soon. And then just.
I'd say if you want to stay up to date with us, follow us on Instagram. That's probably the easiest place to do it. It's just you and again gravity with underscores in between it. You_win, etc.
There we go. Also, go check out the music breakdowns that they did on our YouTube channel. That, obviously, as a content creator myself, I know how much time that went into editing that video. So kudos to Jack for if he wind up editing through that. Kudos to you, man. That's now you feel my pain.
I had to buy video editing software for the one video because I was so upset with the free stuff.
What? What did you buy? No, what editing software did you buy?
Oh, I don't want to get into it. I don't want to even talk about it. But I'll do more. I'll probably do more.
If you do them, just send them to me and I'll edit them for you. So, I got you. So
nice.
But yeah, go check those out. I'll leave also a link to their YouTube channel and all of their social media, so go check that out. It's also in the description of the reaction videos if you want to check those out. I'll leave them down below. Yes. Andy was correct. Into the Dancing Blue is coming out on August the 4th. It'll be out on, I imagine, all streaming platforms, so you can go check it out. Go give them a follow on Spotify, because if not, I'm going to come find you wherever you're at. You need to go do that shit, because it's important. And honestly, this is an album I'm highly anticipating for this year, so if you have not checked them out, now is the time. We are a month out from checking the album out, so it's time to get a little knowledge. So please go show them some love. Go check out their newest songs, Curious Fake, Paper Body, Suppression, and Character Arc. So they are all coming out right now. Well, they're all out now. I know we're recording this in the future, so technically it's not out on my time right now, but you know, some say I might be a time traveler. So who knows? But anyway, let's go check them out. Please go do that. If you enjoyed this interview, share, like, and subscribe. It does go a long way. And huge thanks to you, Win, again, Gravity, for coming on again.
Thank you, Brenda, for having us.
Brenda.
Yeah, man. Loved it.